Hi, I'm Valerie Espinosa, your new Public Regulation Commissioner in District 3. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of my program. I've missed being on the air for the last several months. I hope you have missed our program as much as I've missed doing this program. And so what I have introduced now is a new program entitled Consumer Advocacy. And I've invited Jim Williamson to be here with us. He's the Director of the Consumer Relations Department within the PRC. And he'll help you understand what we do at the PRC, and that's the purpose of having this program. And we've been doing this program for over 9 years, almost 9 years, and we discontinued it for a little while during the transition from my position as County Clerk to the Public Regulation Commission. So I want to welcome you, and I want you to take over the floor and specifically indicate what you do in your position and how our office and your office can benefit the constituents that are viewing us today.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for the warm welcome. And to correct, my name is Jim Williamson. I'm the Director of our Consumer Relations Division, and our area primarily handles the consumer complaints of the industries we regulate here at the PRC. Those include electric, which here in Santa Fe is P&M. We also regulate all the rural co-ops in the area, such as in the Espanola area would be Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op, Kit Carson. In addition, we regulate the natural gas companies, such as the gas company.
Of
There's
New
a few
Mexico.
others, the New Mexico Gas Company. We also regulate the telecommunication companies, such as CenturyLink, formerly Quest. We have limited jurisdiction on the wireless carriers, the cell phones, such as T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, Verizon. Our area also regulates the non-consensual tows from a tow truck, so that's very interesting.
I don't think I told you I went to the academy, the fire academy last Friday, and I saw them in action and saw what it takes for a towing company or a tow truck owner to pick up a big, for instance, an oil rig that has spilled over that might have a leak. So there are many things that the PRC regulates, and you may continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries. Very interesting for the consumer point of view. The difference between a consensual tow versus a non-consensual. Consensual meaning, I want to have my car worked on or taken to Discount Tire for a new tire placement.
Or you get stranded and need a towing company.
And so I'm going to call up a local tower here in Santa Fe or a surrounding area, make an appointment, set up a agreed upon rate with that company. That's called a consensual tow. The PRC does not regulate that. What we do regulate are the non-consensual tows. That's when for example, you perform a boo-boo and you park illegally.
Like somebody we know.
Who goes unmentioned. Or you're involved in an accident on I-25. The state police will call up the wrecker in their rotation. And
How does that rotation work?
I'm not sure. We don't have any jurisdiction over. We don't tell the state police who they use, but wreckers get involved with that, and they get placed on there based on their history with the state police and doing the right job. But they just call on a list in a rotation. So the consumer himself is not consenting to be towed by that individual company, right? You don't know who in the rotation is going to serve you. So the PRC sets the rates for that non-consensual tow based on the hookup charge, the number of miles they go out to go pick up your vehicle, bring you back to the tow yard, the number of days your vehicle's in storage. That's very interesting. A lot of consumers don't understand that. And so back what we were saying on the areas of a jurisdiction, the towing, let's see what else. We also do the insurance side.
For now, through July.
Yeah, through July 1st, exactly. And that's with, we do life insurance, home and auto insurance. So it's but like you said, maybe about 4 more months or so.
And our superintendent is John Franchini, and he's been immensely helpful as in my role and my job when we have consumers call, just like you have been extremely helpful. And so I want to thank you and take this time to thank you and congratulate you on your award you got yesterday for working so hard, even prior to November, the election, when I was getting an abundance of calls. And so again, thank you. I mean, we had people calling about their lines in Las Campanas, and if you want to give some examples of some of the things that you do and how much money you save the PRC and the consumer, not the PRC but the consumer,
Well, in fiscal year 12, which ended in July 1st of last year, of 2011, it's kind of strange, we actually saved consumers a total of $800,000 on roughly 3,000 complaints. So it's pretty substantial. I mean, ultimately, it would be preferable if the consumer didn't have complaints, all the industry was behaving correctly but per the rules and regulations. But, you know, if they're not, it's good we can recover some of that fees for the consumer.
And now with the constitutional amendments changing the way they are, the PRC will no longer have jurisdiction not only over the superintendent but over corporations. And then the educational requirement has become an issue because I think they're trying to collaborate with different bills, House bills, Senate bills, to figure out what the criteria to even run for the district is going to be like.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject there. Some commissioners prefer just to have maybe an appointed position. Some prefer to run as you did in districts and be elected by the people. So there's pros and cons on each side.
So the district that I represent is, let's try to picture the I-25 corridor from the west side of Albuquerque and everything in between, parts of Bernalillo, Rio Rancho, all into some of the pueblos. I'm not sure, I don't think San Felipe, but parts maybe of Santo Domingo, again along the corridor through Santa Fe, Espanola, Los Alamos,
You have La Cienega,
Taos,
because you're my
La
commissioner too.
Yeah, there you go. So it's a huge district if you think about it, and so our phone never stops. And if you want to call my office for any reason, any questions you may have, you may call Mary Jane Parks, and her number is 827-4533. And or you can call Jim directly. I refer many emails, and especially now during the discussions with some of the rate cases that might be coming up, some of the issues within the co-ops that people are starting to see an increase in their, the potential increase on their bills. So I would urge people to also call Jim, but also to take a look at your bills, your phone bill, your electric bill, your gas bill, and try to read. And what we should do is bring somebody from the utility companies that would be willing to come in and explain, how they gauge their readings and how, and what programs are available. And that's what I'd also like you to discuss, what programs are available for these companies and for these people that can tap into that resource.
Well, something very positive for a low-income consumer, there's a program administered by HSD, which is Human Services Department, but we work a lot with it. If a consumer is at 150% of the poverty line, they qualify as low income, and they're eligible for a program called LIHEAP, which is Low Income Home Energy. Home Energy Assistance Program. That's right. And that's where they can receive an annual benefit from the state, from HSD, that goes toward the payment of a gas bill or electric bill or even even propane or firewood. So it just depends on what the consumer needs. And that LIHEAP qualification also gives the consumer the ability not to be disconnected during the winter moratorium, which runs from November 15th through March 15th. So as we know here in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, it's very cold.
It's going to snow in April maybe.
In those months, right? So it protects those low-income individuals from being disconnected when they can at least afford to in those winter months. So it's a very good program, the LIHEAP program.
So what kind of complaints do you get besides the kind that I forward to you or that I, have to pass on?
The most common complaint, Commissioner, is I've been disconnected. How do I get reconnected? I mean, we really try to tell consumers, please don't let that happen. If you have trouble paying your bill, please let the co-op or the company know ahead of time and make arrangements. They'll usually give you, your bill cutoff date. They'll give you notices. If you're due for disconnection on, for example, March 1st. Well, if you don't get your paycheck until the next week, please call the company and make arrangements. That way they don't have to disconnect you, because with the disconnection, there's reconnection fees. You may be without electricity, and that's not a good situation given our weather, right? So please always make payment arrangements with that company, or if you're not comfortable, feel free to call us. We'll help out as well. So that's the most common. Another big one is my bill is too high. It can possibly be that high, right? Well, that's very common with the electric company. We verify that the meter was an actual correct meter reading. Sometimes the meter readers can't make it out to a consumer's house to read the meter. We get snow here in Santa Fe. That happens or there's been strikes on the meter readers. I mean, multiple things can happen, so they have to use an estimated meter read, which is what they take. They look at your bill from the same month of the previous year and use that estimate as your bill for this month. But that's not your actual read. And then the next month, when they do get an actual read, they'll have to do what we call an adjustment or a true-up to get the actual read. So, and that's sometimes too high for the consumer, so we do a checklist. We say, okay, is a meter reading, is it an actual or an estimated? If it's actual, well, then that's an actual read. We have the consumer ask themselves, okay, did you add any new appliances, refrigerators? Refrigerators are a big energy hog. Do you clean the coils of your refrigerators? In the rear of your refrigerators, there's usually coils.
No, I don't do that.
But it helps. You'd be surprised, right? Or do you have energy efficient appliances?
Yes.
We run down the list. If those all check out and we still don't know, we have the consumer run a breaker test where they go to the breaker box. I'm sure you've seen it at your home, the big box you open up with all the breaker switches, and we have them turn off all the energy. You'll have to reset your clock and your VCR, but it's worth it, right?
No. Setting those little clocks is not fun.
Right. So you do one by one, turning each breaker back on. So you can say, okay, this is for my living room or my kitchen. And you can see, okay, you turn that breaker on, you go check your meter. You can see if that meter starts spinning quickly in that area. If you have a digital meter, you see it start ringing up. So you can say, okay, it has to be with this zone.
Interesting.
Maybe this appliance is using a lot of energy. It could be an electrical problem, right? Here in Santa Fe, we're on P&M, so if there's a lot of energy use in your kitchen, it's not P&M's responsibility to pay for that. It's your responsibility. From the meter to the appliance is a consumer's responsibility. From the meter to the line is the utilities. So we try to check that out, and if it's still not certain what the problem was, well, then you may have to seek an electrician's help. You could have a short in your line, appliances, wire. So we try to do a checklist to reduce what we do know.
You'll have to give me a copy of that checklist.
Oh, sure, definitely. It's on our website.
I've actually, okay, well, that's good to know. I've actually done what you just said. I've listed each, little switch, little breaker, because, when you blow the breaker in the, when you're using your blow dryers, and then you have to run out and try to figure out which one it is.
Yes.
So I marked them all. So that's a good idea.
Right. And we encourage folks to really try to winterize their home, use the, those heaters here in the winter. Those really use a lot of energy. You're probably looking at maybe
electric heaters?
The electric heaters are probably good $80 to your bill. So really try to not use that if you can possibly. Try to really go with firewood. I mean, that's what I personally do in La Cienega, to really reduce my dependence on those electric heaters.
Well, that's a lot of good information. So how did you get involved? I should have started that at the beginning. What I usually do is ask to say a little bit about yourself, how you ended up even working at the PRC, what's your background, where you're from, and I'm sure you just love your job, so you can talk about how...
I do enjoy it. Well, I'm a fourth generation New Mexican. My great-grandfather actually homesteaded a ranch in southeastern New Mexico named in Millansand, which is the home of the prairie chicken, if you know about that. But it's about 30 miles south of Portales. So, and then my parents met at eastern New Mexico in Portales. So I have a lot of roots here in New Mexico. I worked in the private sector in Texas. We came back here in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, and it was August of '09. I began working with Commissioner David King, who was a commissioner at the commission at the time. He termed up. And then I became director of the Consumer Relations Division in January of 2011. So that's how I got on board. And I take great pride. Our staff does a great job trying to help the consumer.
I've seen it every day since the minute I got there. I'm really grateful.
We're blessed with a great staff. I wouldn't have anybody else in there versus our people we have in there working very hard, trying to stay abreast of the current issues. As you know, the regulations and rules change constantly. You have to learn the latest case. So
it's in a day's work, let me tell you, there's a lot of decisions to be made, and we started talking about some of the co-ops and some of the rate increases that are coming up, and the consumers that get together in a group and they protest, and so You and I went to a meeting in El Rancho. You took the forms. Talk about the form and what a person does if they want to contest a case, a rate
It's
case.
usually a stakeholder, someone who's directly affected by that potential decision. Usually 99% of the time, it's a ratepayer of that decision. And there's, of course, the case about the Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op. They're not required to use that form we gave. They can just be a blank piece of paper. They can send us via email. The instructions are on our website.
And you crafted that website, didn't you?
Yes.
So I asked recently to add the mission statement and the code of ethics.
The code of ethics,
we should come up
yes.
with one. So thank you for doing that. But you might want to talk about that as well, the website and what information's on there. And each commissioner is there, logged in by each district.
Well, I came from the private sector, from a web internet design background, so it just made sense to just update the website more to the 2012, 2013, more user-friendly, because ultimately the taxpayer is you're our boss, of course, but the taxpayer pays everyone's salary. They're our ultimate boss.
I'm a
so
consumer too,
we're
remember.
still consumers, right? So we should make it customer service our top priority, make us all accessible. For example, providing the rates. Some consumers don't understand. Okay, they look at their bill. Am I being charged the correct rate? And I've been disconnected. Did I receive the correct notice? There's a certain amount of days the notice must be given before you're disconnected. So you can verify all that on our website. So we took off we dusted off the old red binders. They weren't doing the consumer any good. Scanned them in, put them on the website so the consumer can see, okay, are the companies complying with the rules and regulations? So we tried to make that a little more consumer friendly. There's a complaint filing process online, which we receive. There's also the email addresses of all 5 commissioners, their
The
assistants.
agenda's on there.
The web
We've
agenda.
switched our meetings. That was a new policy we implemented on day 1, and that is to change the meetings from twice a week to once a week on Wednesdays. I think that works really well in terms of getting the material together and reading it in advance rather than rushing for 2 short meetings on a Tuesday and a Thursday. It just made better sense.
Absolutely, and public comment is welcome at those meetings, and we can actually, there's a streaming video player on the website, so you can actually listen to the commissioners discuss the potential rate cases, the formal complaints.
But is it in real time? I remember when I watched it in the past, there was an echo, and it was showing, it showed the audience rather than showing the commission. So I'm not sure if people actually log on to watch it, but if they want to stream it, there's a link on our website. How does that work?
Well, there's different camera angles where one is of the commissioners, one is of the audience, but yes, you're absolutely right. There is a delay between the audio and the video. It should be corrected, absolutely. So
and that's what I'm
something.
hoping to have done is, all the city, county commission meetings are not live, but they're recorded and then they're broadcast on this station. And I think that would be a really good idea. And I think we're working towards that as we work to get back online on TV to educate the public of, what we're doing at the PRC. We tend to get a black eye for everything, but not anymore. Things are working, I think, running smoothly. We're in transition, of course, but once the insurance is gone and corporations, we might, better focus on just regulating the utilities. And
Right.
as you can see, there's never a dull moment in my office. There's simply enough time to work on some of these issues 24/7. So, and that we forgot to mention, there's pipeline safety.
Right.
And there's different divisions.
The fire marshal's division.
We forgot the fire marshal too.
Right.
They bring before, now that the session is on, we've been discussing some of the legislation that applies to the PRC, and we either endorse it or not. And so
There's a potential fireworks ban bill, I remember being discussed.
I think everybody's in favor of the firework ban, and I'm not sure why it's so difficult to get some of these laws passed.
Well, there's always pros and cons because you don't want to hurt the fireworks industry, but then again, you want to maintain public safety, so you got to find that balance down the middle, hopefully.
And I would think, even in discussions with some of the tribes, they too don't want to see,
Right.
their lands burned. I mean, so naturally everyone would comply and respect
especially with
that.
the drought we've been experiencing, so absolutely.
So, yes. Anyhow, pipeline, we just did a commercial for the 811, call before you dig.
Right.
And that's pretty important as well.
Right. That's a federally funded program, and that's in every state. I mean, when I lived in Texas, there was 811, right? And that's when you dig, you're going to plant a tree, or if you're going to...
And there's
just
no
do
cost, right?
Yeah, it's no cost for the consumer. That's all built into the rates. I mean, you pay that, the utilities are charged that, and then the consumer pays that through the rates, so you never even see that cost. And then I've actually used the 811 service out here in New Mexico, and they mark the lines of I believe they mark everything but your cable line. They mark the telecom line, your gas, your electric.
And I'm glad you brought up cable, because we talked about that earlier today, and why many people call and want to either complain about propane and or cable in addition to everything else. Why is it that is it because it's a competitive market?
Well, with the cable industry, absolutely. It's a competitive marketplace. You have your Comcast, you have CenturyLink DSL, so that's all regulated more on the federal side, on the FCC, Federal Communications Commission. So, but our goal is to help the consumer in any way we can, right? So we can take those complaints and contact the company on behalf of the consumer. We really can't enforce any action against the company, but we can send it on. We usually are successful at getting those resolved, billing issues. We get issues, they dug up the line, they didn't rebury it, please take care of the cable, and we get everything. You'd be surprised, all the different complaints we get. So what we try to help is when we can. If we can't, we try to refer the complainant over to the correct agency. A lot of times we work with the Attorney General's office, the Governor's office, construction industries quite a bit on the electric side, financial industries.
Yeah, we should give the Attorney General some airtime and say, if you also have consumer-related complaints,
right,
he too is there for your protection.
Well, and Commissioner, back to your discussion of the website, if you see our website, which is at NM for New Mexico, prc.state.nm.us, you'll see a big, some pretty pictures about all the areas we regulate. There's pictures of the commissioners, and then there'll be a menu bar towards the top hand of the screen, and then it'll have, there's a home button, commissioners, but our specific area is consumer relations. I think we're the third one to the right. And you'll see an area, if you scroll over that link, there'll be an FAQs button, and that'll say exactly what we regulate and what areas we don't regulate. And if we don't regulate it, it gives you a link and a phone number where you could seek assistance on that matter.
You might want to mention your phone number while you have an opportunity.
Well, the Consumer Relations Division, our specific line is 505-827-4592, and we have a great staff, again, to help, whether your issue being utility, transportation, or insurance.
I think the entire department as a whole really strives to be friendly, and I think they're working really hard to change the whole goal of the whole outlook of the organization.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we try to really respond to complaints. Even if we can't solve it at that moment, we'll at least acknowledge the consumer, hey, we received your complaint, we're working on it, we're discussing it with the company. Or if we don't have the authority to handle that type of complaint, we'll refer you to a place that might be able to. So we really take pride of responding efficiently.
I've seen it firsthand.
Right.
And so what do you foresee in the future in terms of, what do you want to make better about the PRC in your department, especially?
Our specific area, we recently did some rulemaking to really detail out, a consumer can use utility service, right? But at one point, can the company back bill for any uncollected service that they never billed, or can there be back billing? And so those are very technical concepts, but we finally got it resolved. So now the consumer knows yes or no, because it never was defined in the past. So that's something we take a lot of pride in having resolved. The medical and financial certificate forms have been redesigned, hopefully more understandable to the consumer, to industry, and the medical profession. Because if an individual qualifies for that LIHEAP program we discussed as low income, and they have a medical condition, they will not be disconnected from service as long as they recertify both forms, the medical and the financial forms. And there was some confusion from the consumers, like, well, I don't have, here, not to talk bad about P&M, but their form was pink, right? And they required the form to be pink. So we really standardized the form so everyone understands their rights and responsibilities, make it easier for everyone to do their role, to fill out the form.
And that's good. There's nothing wrong with
Yes.
communicating between the utility and the PRC.
Right.
For instance, some of the new rulemaking changes have been that, given the rolling blackouts that happened in the north and
Right.
their response to not only government but to the community, to make sure there's communication going on. For instance, my first blackout was recently with New Mexico Gas.
Right.
I was in close communication. You saw they pulled me out of a meeting to inform me of what the status was and how much longer they estimated getting everybody back online.
Right.
And so I was communicating with the elected officials in Taos County and Los Alamos, who thought they were going to be a part of it, and Espanola. So it's working better, and I think that's a good thing. So.
And there are plans to make the system more redundant. There's discussion, I don't have the case number off the top of my head, but of building a natural gas storage facility in
For a
Rio Rancho
backup.
as a backup in case those gas lines do lose pressure again, as they did in February of 2011 when it was negative 18 here in Santa Fe County. That way we don't have to depend on those bad Texans, right, to pressurize our
You're
lines.
a Texan,
I know.
and you
get a poke
said
fun
that.
at yourself, right? So it's good, so we have control of our own destiny. So that's, of course, in front of the commission, deciding the cost, because ultimately ratepayers will pay for that, but it's something we probably should have to avoid people being without that service in the cold winter months. So.
Well, very good. With that, I want to thank you for being here, and I'd like to welcome you back, and we can have this dialogue, an open dialogue. If anyone has questions for either of us, again, you can reach us at 827-4533. And if you'd like to be on this program or see any particular issues that relate to the PRC, please give us a call. We'd be happy to disclose, bring it out in the open, and talk about what we do and how we can enhance our service, and that's our whole goal here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Commissioner. You've really hit the ground running. I mean, you were actually handling complaints before you came into office. It was very, very good, and it seems like we're going to make a lot of positive changes. So,
and District 3,
very excited.
Thank you. And District 3 knows where to find us, and they know how to get a hold of me. So that's
absolutely.
And thank you for helping or allowing me to delegate a lot of this
sure.
work while we're in meetings and gathering information. So, thank you. And with that, we'll end our program and give us a call at 827-4533.